Kirill, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast episode. I really, really appreciate your time and being able to sit with me here in a very positive tone, talking about the world, talking about people, relationships, friendships, and how the self has to do with all of that. And it's really great to be able to sit down because I've considered you as one of my really best friends, and to listen to share your wisdom with the world is something that I think is really underrated. It's you have a lot of wisdom, a lot of gifts to share with the world, and I'm so happy that we get this chance to be able to have this conversation. We've been wanting to have this conversation for a little bit now, and I'm glad that we're finally making it today. And so, thank you so much for jumping on here, and welcome to the Goot Psyche podcast.
Good Psyche podcast. That's
Yeah.
what it's called. Okay. Sounds very cool. Thanks for having me here, guys. Thanks a lot, Sam. Proud of you to be a friend of you. Uh, you're inspiring me a lot since when I was your age. I couldn't be proud of myself, to be honest. Like, from the age, so from the very early age, instead of doing yoga and practice some spiritual practices, I was drinking and smoking as fuck. From 7 years old up to like all the way grade 10, I guess. And yeah, so that's why.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about how people can be regulating themselves, how to be able to understand themselves a little bit more. And you, as a yogi or an aspiring yogi, a yogi that is, how long have you been a yogi for?
I guess since 2014, maybe even earlier. That's
Uh-huh.
the earliest that I can
Nearly 10
remember.
years.
Mhm.
What is your definition of a yogi?
For me, firstly, it's philosophy. Yoga means connection. Usually, it's considered as a connection between you and the supreme conscious. But to me personally, I consider it firstly as a connection between your mind and your inner self. That's the thing,
Uh,
because usually it's very separated if you observe it.
your
So
mind and
like
yourself.
yeah, it's like you connect yourself to the inner self, so you easily can understand your desires, your needs, um, people that you want to have around you, like all the things. So when you have this connection, deep connection with yourself, the outer world is automatically being adjusted.
Mm. The way that I define a yogi is someone who doesn't sleep with a bed.
Okay. Don't tell them the truth, otherwise, like nobody's coming to my class.
And then also, I mean, the yogis are able to just kind of maintain balance in a lot of scenarios as well. You've been on that path of creating that balance for yourself, and it seems like the way you have been able to manage that is not just through your mind first, but your body first.
Yeah, that's the trick. That's probably the way that I chose yoga first, because I think that's a shortcut, to be honest, guys. Because when you work through your body, the first thing that you can connect with, you obviously can go to like some like psychologist, therapist, and something like that. It's also helpful. Um, but I think the fastest way to manage your hormonal system and your mind, balance your mind, is your body.
Mm.
Because they're like the easiest way.
Yeah, and when you don't manage your body, but you can manage your mind, what are the kind of things that would happen to someone?
It depends. It depends how's your body balanced from the beginning. If you're already like in a good shape, in a good physical shape, then it's fine. You can go straight forward to psychologist, therapist, astropsychologist, like wherever you feel so. But if you're in depression, in a stress, in the state of like mind disorder or something like that, if you cannot like manage the good friendship, cannot manage good relationship with your parents, I think the first thing and foremost is to balance your body first.
Because it's too strenuous for the mind, right?
Uh,
There's too many things that are going on, and the attachments to these things of when there's a lot of scenarios in the world and the mind is so attached to them,
mm,
right? But then you can detach through the body, and you can start to learn how to detach through the form of the body, because when you will understand that you're tapping into the subconscious through the sensations on your body,
hmm
that is another way to be able to reprogram yourself. And so you can reprogram yourself through the mind and body. And
exactly.
so this is such an interesting way, because the way that I've only thought of reprogramming myself is through the mind, which is understanding different psychologies, philosophies, and being able to have a little bit more conventional wisdom that has to do with neuroscience and just practical advice, right? That business owners give you and your father's dad advice type
Mm-hmm.
of thing. I never would have thought that you can actually manipulate in a good way your body to be able to reinforce behaviors that start to link into your subconscious. So when we talk about the things that need to happen for people to reprogram themselves through their body, does that only mean yoga?
Actually, not necessarily. The main thing is to create a different pattern of your behavior. That's the main thing. You can go to the gym, you can run, you can do breath working techniques. That's also work. The main thing is to generate different patterns. For instance, in my case, I started from watching some spiritual videos, some gurus, some lecturers, some priests, and something like that. But my patterns and my behavior remained the same. So I couldn't change my life like outwardly. I changed my like perception and maybe some of my affirmations, but from outside you wouldn't mention it. But since I realized that, oh my god, they just need to do small steps every day, and it's gonna create like, a huge impact on my life. Even just quitting smoking and drinking affected me a lot tremendously. It changed my surrounding a lot, changed my health a lot, and eventually like way of thinking as well.
Same. So you were on that path of trying to also enlighten yourself per se, and to get to this point of being able to liberate yourself to be not as miserable with the things that go on in your day-to-day life through under like listening to these gurus and spiritual teachers. But so your actual way of doing that was starting with your mind 1st, but you came to a point where you recognized that there was still a missing ingredient, and that turned out to be your body.
Yep.
And so when we talk about these small steps that you need to make, these could be it's just working out then, right? It's just exercising, doing little just walks. Is that it?
Here's the trick here, because like for instance, you can go to, like, as I said before, like to the gym, swim, and do something like that. But if you don't understand like the basis, how does your body work, you'll never change it. You can, and spontaneously like something might happen to you, but how does the hormonal system work? If you don't realize it, you'll never change. Like for instance, okay, a little bit of scientific information about yoga. So you people not think that yoga is something like for gurus and meditators. We just jump out of the ice plunge.
Yeah, we did.
And how do you feel?
I mean, every time I come out of the ice plunge, it's like a stream of consciousness, a stream of energy. It's just abundance.
Yeah.
It's everything.
And like you already know about it. Like from your perspective, why it happens?
Why it happens? Oh, well, there's so many things that have to do with shocking the nervous system. This is what I've created to be understanding of the reprogramming the body. Is that this is the phrase that I've used of called shocking the nervous system. This could be through any form of breath work, exercise, ice bath, running. It's being able to recognize that this form of shock is something completely different out of the ordinary of this sitting lifestyle that most people have.
Obviously, yeah.
You know, on the computer all day. And then I've also learned so much from you, especially when it comes to Tandava, when it comes to these little this I don't know what the practice is where you're doing the tick-ticks. Yeah, there's so many interesting things. Even when with your roommate Dennis, have taught me some practices with being able to flex the toes and bind the toes to be able to have blood flow rush to it. And then there's also the sadhu board, these types of things where it's like therapy for your body mostly. And this changes the dynamic of the way that your brain is going to respond and to react. It's not reacting anymore. It's just acting.
And observing, yeah.
And observing.
Exactly.
Wow.
And yeah, that's my perspective as well. And as I said, like about the scientific way, as Sunny said, that you have to stand and put yourself in some sort of stressful situation where you slowly observe it without like compulsive reaction. It can be yoga, it can be like sadhu boards, it can be ice plunge, wherever it is. You just immerse yourself in this cold water or like standing on these nails and slowly observe it without like jumping out of this. And with this observation, you see that the level of cortisol that your body produces and that your adrenal glands produces in order to cope with the stress is slowly getting balanced. And eventually your mind is getting balanced as well. So through your body, through your hormonal system, you affect your mind a lot. So the level of stress that you face in a day-to-day life is getting lower and lower through your body. And it's the fastest way and the shortcut, in my experience, and experience of people that surrounds me.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really, really inspired because like you and Dennis have had a huge impact on the way that I've looked at my body, especially. And when we talk about these things like the Tandava dance, this is a masculine dance that Shiva used to do. I didn't even know. I wasn't even very familiar with the Hindu religion, but I recognize that you are pretty involved in the Hindu religion, but almost not just like it's not your religion. Um, you is there also a similar practice like the Tandava for females? Like, what is the? Do you understand the difference between the way that the body can react from a male and female's perspective, or just the way that you can kind of shift those programs that like we've been talking about?
I'm talking about Tandava, yeah, as you said, like this ancient dance that was invented by Shiva Lord around 7,000 years ago. Some people consider him as a god. Some people consider him as a like ancient yogi who invented lots of practices, including Tandava. But for me, I never, fell into this kind of conspirology, philosophies, and religions without observing it from the scientific point of view. Like, for instance, how does Tandava work? Cross your legs while dancing and keep your hands up. So you engage your shoulders and you engage your lower abdominal muscles. That affects your manipura or adrenal glands a lot. Like you might have seen these coaches and gurus who always like saying that the open gestures always demonstrate, even in the nature, like monkeys always like in order to scare shit out of their opponents, they're always trying to put their hands up, or like to demonstrate their power and authority. They always keep their hands up.
Yeah.
So the same way, while with dancing, we're always trying to maintain this ideation and keep this idea. So like, I'm a king basically. I'm a ruler of my life because you keep hands like this, and it produces a lot of adrenaline in your body while we're dancing, especially when you cross your legs, because you affect your lower back, lower abdominal muscles, as I said, and you engage your legs. Because even in different types of sciences, in yogi philosophy, it says that the more you engage your legs, the more you're connected with the ground. That's very important to be connected, to be grounded. Actually.
And in the practice, you also are holding a weapon of death.
Yeah, like knife or sword.
And then the other hand?
Like it can be a skull or like a snake. You just visualize it to keep this ideation in order to maintain this ideation of defeating death or like immortality, basically.
It's such a powerful practice. There's a lot of things that have helped me, little things like this, especially when I'm just trying to do my day-to-day work. Because what I've found so helpful inside of being able to transform my body, but by first being aware of my body, helps me to be regulated. And this can help me through any type of situations that happen. If there's a crucial conversation that I want to have with my family, or if there's a crucial conversation that I want to have with this girl, maybe we are going to get in a relationship, or just wanting to approach a woman at the same time, having a conversation with a friend, talking about what you don't like about them. These are healthy things, but also not just that, but just day-to-day life as well. Especially when I just don't feel like I want to do work, I can just do something that connects me to my body and then gets me grounded and present, that will be able to reinforce the behaviors and mindset to just be aware and to be able to allow myself to think. But then what I'm doing intentionally also is changing the way that my body thinks. Now, just because we're changing the way the body is feeling and thinking, for the mind to then be thinking differently, is this a sort of bottling it up and kind of not stepping into it and kind of just like forgetting about it? It's ignoring it in some way when your body is feeling a certain way, and then you try to reinforce a different action or yoga or some practice that is basically saying, I want to feel a better way. And so I'm not okay with the feeling that I'm currently feeling now. It could be depression, anxiety, or fear, any sort of these things. And it's saying, okay, I don't want to feel this now, so I'm going to do anything I can to make myself feel different. And this is why most people go into different attitudes of going into drugs, smoking, addictions with games, video games, and even just scrolling sometimes as well. It's a and then so when we look at yoga and breath work and meditation, this is just also an addiction as well. But why is it different in
Sort
this
of.
aspect?
It's different, first of all, because it affects you in a positive way. Like, for instance, um, you'll never feel hangover after yoga. The first benefit. The second one is like, it's a long-term effect, accumulative effect that you feel like after months. But for the first time when you do yoga, you feel like, oh my God, no, that's like for some like super stretchy and super powerful people. Um, yeah, I'm not meant for that. Some people think, but in like 1 month, 2 months, when you feel the impact and affection on your mind, automatically you go to yoga and it's addiction, as you said before, obviously, as well as an ice plunge, as well as a nail, like sadhu nails, sadhu bores. That's obviously addictions, but it's a conscious stress that you put yourself in order to transform it into observation.
A conscious stress.
Yeah, conscious stress. And that's the thing, you train your mind, as you said before, like step by step, to cope with the stress in the outer world as well. It's like going to a therapist, but on the physical level. So what happens when you go to the therapist? So like you come up with, or you create an idea, or like remembering some situations from the past to digest them in this current moment. That's the thing that happens during like doing yoga when you compress like your glands, doing some squeezing postures, or like doing like twisting postures, yeah. Or like when you're standing on the nails, or when you do ice plunge, you like stress yourself on a certain level when you can easily or not easily, like depends on like from person to person, like it varies. Sometimes you can scream and yell and use cuss words, but anyway, you're in charge, you're in control of the situation, rather than when it just like pop up out of nowhere in your like day-to-day life and you like have no idea what to do with this. But here, if you practice it like ice plunge, sadhu stance, the sadhu nails, you just already train and prepare your mind for like dealing with these issues in the outer world.
That's interesting. I mean, when you look, it's you talking about a conscious stress reliever,
Kind of.
but it's also putting that stress on you consciously.
Mm-hmm.
But so when we look at someone like our mutual friend Casper, he has no shame whatsoever, and he doesn't do yoga or like ice baths or breath work and things of that sort. From who I know him to be, yet he is totally conscious in every decision that he makes. He's totally aligned with his soul, that he's okay with even watching Netflix when his body is in a stressful mode. He'll go in and watch Netflix or to do some favorite TV show of his, or maybe he'll scroll as well. He doesn't have any shame towards this. Yet this could, I don't necessarily know if it's an addiction in his lifestyle, but this is a conscious choice as well. He's making the conscious choice to say, okay, I want to be not not putting attention to this feeling that I'm feeling right now. It's uncomfortable. There is some attitudes with that I do personally think that it's unhealthy when we kind of push certain feelings away to neglect the current state that we're in. It's basically because we're in a negative experience now, to want a positive experience, that's a negative experience. To want something different than where you are currently is a negative thing in a certain way, because you're basically saying that right now is not okay where I am.
And it shouldn't be like that. You like against the emotions that you're experiencing at the moment.
Right. And I don't believe we need to sometimes transform anything and just kind of experience what we need to experience at that moment. Yes, there's some ways where people will go onto Netflix or YouTube or scrolling or video games, smoking. These types of things also could help them deal with that stress, and that's totally okay as well. Some people find that this actually amplifies their stress or amplifies their depression and anxiety. And for me, it sure does amplify my anxiety when I smoke weed. And there's just ways that I've been able to maneuver and manipulate the ways that I've been stressful and anxious. And even in my past, when I was depressed, I didn't necessarily know what practices that I could do. And so it was easier for me to do something that just was a quick high, a quick feeling that would just give me something amazing, right? So this is the same thing that yoga does, that breathwork does. It's something that you can do for your body that is conscious as well. Yes, there's also the addiction habits, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling horrible. Maybe if I do some breath work really quickly, it'll make me feel differently. It's this idea of something too much of one thing can be overdone and addicted in a way. And that can create what you can call a tolerance. And so the first thing that you said before was changing it up in a different routine. That's the thing that I've been doing. And that's been able to transform my life in ways for manipulating my body's feelings, but also being okay with the way that my body has been feeling. Some days I don't have the access to go do yoga or to do breath work. Like you may have had those times where you're at
Obviously,
this. Yeah, there's times where you don't have that opportunity. But when you are in situations, what do you think of when people are just in these sort of situations where they could go to smoke weed consciously, they could go to breath work consciously? It's like there's the conscious aspect to it. Does it really matter what it is as long as it's not doing the same thing over and over and over again and becoming an addiction?
Obviously, frankly speaking, the second thing, the second shortcut that you can implement in your life is what just Semi said, that you can consciously do and follow the habits that you're doing right now, even they might be considered as a bad, but you still do it, but consciously and step by step, gradually. Especially, it's nice to have some like diary, right? It's called diary.
Diary.
Yeah. Or when you notice firstly the action itself, then the emotions that you experienced, emotions that you experienced before, like what happened, what caused the situation that you started to smoke, for instance, and then how do you want it to be, and what actions do you want to do instead of this one before. Like, so you break into a few steps the action that you currently do. For instance, like if you're smoking, you're like, okay, today I'm just smoking, and observe it and consciously enjoying your smoking. Next time, try to bring your awareness back to yourself in this present moment when you're taking out this pack of cigarettes, for instance. The next step is when you're just trying to lighten. The next one, when you're just putting in your pocket, and eventually you even will, like, one day you even might forget this pack on the table, just because you consciously observe it and just leave it step by step. Like my teacher said that you should do like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. If you're always moving forward, that's like a already like too technical explanation, but I'm trying to engage it in this conversation. For instance, the screw.
Screwdriver.
Yeah.
Okay.
The screw, it has a spiral on it.
Yeah.
So in order to make the spiral, you're supposed to use some kind of equipment when you're moving to one side, like 2 rounds on one side and 1 round back. Because if you're continuously moving to one side only, eventually you're gonna break this screw. So in order to make the spiral, you should like make 1 step back to get rid of this metal that you cut. So the same with our lives. If you only like move forward, push. For instance, I had experience of 1 year of raw eating food only. And it stressed me out a lot. Even though like I was super healthy, like eating like food with no spices at all, no salt, no sugar, no coffee, nothing. Just raw vegetables and fruit the whole year long. Only maybe like honey apart from the raw food. And I was super healthy, super sensitive. Stamina was on the highest level ever. Like my skin problems disappeared forever. But at the same time, level of stress in my mind was extremely high, just because I pressed myself too much. So that's the thing. You should feel your body as well. If you feel that this addiction is too strong, so you better just follow it. And yeah, if it's like a learned pattern to get rid of this anxiety, like for instance, some people trying to avoid depression and stress through drinking. That's completely fine if you do it consciously, without going to clubs, bars, like meeting with people, forgetting yourself and your emotions and feelings, as you said, like bottling up. So just yeah, if you're drinking, try to drink alone. Try to do it. Maybe in a week you'll realize like, oh, that's something rotten I'm doing. Try to drink the same amount of like wine or beer, whatever you like, but do it consciously, enjoying every single sip, and see what will happen in a week.
Not having the people kind of be that pressure, the
Yes.
peer pressures of other people, or the peer pressures of just any sort of situation that you went into. It's like then there's some thing that happened. Oh my gosh, I don't even want to think about this. Let me just go and do this. Let me just go and smoke this. Let me go and drink this. Right? I mean, I feel there's also yogis that get to that point as well, where people, because I would say that yogis also have been able to close off that side of their life, where maybe they were in that point of life where they were drinking and smoking and doing these things that are kind of been just not conscious and I guess unhealthy behaviors, you could say, for the body. And then these yogis can get into this habit pattern of doing breath work as that type of thing of like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to deal with this. Let me just go meditate on that. I think that's a really helpful thing at times, right? I mean, it's a very cautious thing. You're just when you look at what meditation is, it's a lot about just being observant and being able to just be aware of what's going on. And when you try to create any sort of situation in your life, being aware is 100% the biggest thing when we look at that. Because what you were talking about right there is talking about, okay, just be cautious. Being cautious is being aware of every single time you take out, you're reaching for it. You have that impulse of reaching for the smokes in your pocket. As soon as you start to take it out, right? As soon as you take out your lighter, as soon as you flick the lighter, and then as soon as you take that first inhale, it's like you can take different steps by steps and start to pay attention to which process of that habit that you're consuming, that you're putting yourself into. It's a really powerful way to be able to transform everything about who you are in this world. And because what we're talking about here is changing your life through the body. And when we want to change the life through the body, we have to understand what the body is doing. What actions is it taking? I mean, when you look at the actual programming of the minds and realize what power it has to just be able to move on its own without you actually needing to think, okay, I'm going to first move my shoulder, then I'm going to extend my elbow and I'm going to move this elbow joint, and then I'm going to twist my wrist. It's so simple to just go straight into a certain action. How do you think people can slow down and actually start to slow down that process of consciousness or the flow of impulse?
I think the easiest and the fastest way is to shorten a number of distractions from this action. For instance, in my case, my strongest and the hugest addiction is masturbation, for instance. And in order to get rid of it, or like to shorten it and transform it into something different, and to understand the deepest desire behind of it, you should get rid of distractions during this process. For instance, like you should stop watching porn and, for instance, starting using your imagination instead. then you do it without even imagination. Just technically and mechanically do the process.
Yeah.
And you finally and eventually you might find yourself just, like using your penis. But like the whole process will make like the situation super funny, It's like you're just observing yourself from the side and like, what the hell am I doing right now? So that's the thing to change your behavior. And after that, when you realize that something wrong and this mechanism is super weird that you're doing, you'll start to realize like, oh, what exactly need is behind of it. It's like, okay, I wanted to be like united with some like female or like a man or a girl, or I wanted to have deepest connection as deep as I can. Like usually people who are like willing to have sex, they either wanted to release their anger, for instance, or they wanted to have very like strong bond with somebody. That's what makes them to have this kind of strong desire. So, and when you realize this deepest desire, you realize that, oh, maybe there are some different ways, and start to look around like, which way can I use, which is healthier for me, for my mentality, for my body. Because every time you lose the stamina, you lose lots of energy as well. So I guess, yeah. Which is healthier for me and for my mental health can I use in order to like develop myself at the same time to satisfy and meet my needs, meet my targets actually.
That was there's something that you said there that I think is something to discuss on. It's about the why you're doing it, the intention. And this is something that yogis are really, really good at. Because when you get on the yoga mat, what are you doing the first thing before even doing the yoga?
Breath working, for sure.
Are you setting the intention?
Intention as well. It depends, actually. In some classes we do, in some we don't. But yeah, just very much in the very beginning we do breath working in order to bring our awareness and our conscious get back to this place, not trying to think the things about the future, some worries about the future, some regrets about the past, trying to get back yourself in this present moment.
Yeah, because that's like the thing. It's like when you're on the mat, when you're on that yoga mat, that's where you're setting the intention. But then when you're in your day-to-day life, that's where the real change and the real worlds and the actions happen. And that's the process that is training you. That's the process you're training for when you're on that yoga mat. And when we look at these types of situations of why we do something, the intention behind something, we typically do it for something else, right? To get something out of it. We don't smoke because we want to
poison our body.
Mm-hmm. You're right. We don't drink to want to have so much hangover or this insane amount of liquid and peeing out so much, right? We do it for something different. There's a different intention going on. We don't do yoga to just, I guess you could say, make our body flexible.
Yeah.
It's not just for flexibility. It's to be able to train the body and to train yourself to be able to act, not to react. There's a huge difference in these two words when you're reacting and acting. And when we talk about when someone is reacting, it's because there is this idea that is not being met. There's some sort of subjective want, need, expectation that's not being met. And then when we look at the intention, it's like, wow, okay, maybe there's something that I can do here to observe it. I just want to observe. The intention could just sometimes be observed. And this is where we fall into acting. Because when you're observing and you're aware and you're creating an intention, this is how you create an action. The first step of creating an action is intention. The first step of having a reaction is impulse. Or the feeling, right? So the first one is over here, the impulse. It's subconscious. It's just automatic. The first one is conscious and not automatic. It's intentional. When we look at these two different the differences of reacting, acting, the intention, why. When we really think about it at this such deep level, and where yoga is not actually just for stretching, and drinking is not just for just to have a hangover, right? There's a different level, a different meaning behind these things. What can you say to someone that wants to be in this situation of, I guess you could say, happiness and joy and fulfillment, being able to not to be so reactive, and be able to have strong intentions when the world is just, it's like there's so much depression there, and anxiety, right? Sometimes it's just so overwhelming and stressful that it just, we don't even have the capabilities to even move into wanting to do this sort of action that can be healthy, that can be conscious. It's easier to do the thing that's just a straight impulse. It doesn't take efforts to just do that, because there's an unconscious thing going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But when we look at the intention, that takes a little bit more energy, right? And so I believe that there's something here. There's something here that can be said when we talk about this, of what is the way that people can move towards being more conscious and have energy, even when they don't have energy to do that conscious thing.
Mm.
How do you think people can go about that?
Body, for sure, is the first step. Whether it is yoga, gym, swimming, or wherever, you just pump up this energy in your body. Even if you feel sleepy, just do a few steps. Just walking around the house already helpful. That's the first thing. So you already start this metabolism and make the blood circulate faster in your body.
Just start moving.
Yeah, that's the thing. The second one is surrounding. That is very important. To have community such as Sam has, such I have, like School of You, right? Mm-hmm. It's called, or like Conscious Design, which I have. It's helpful because you're just surrounded with the people who don't let you go down. Because even if you feel blue, or like you're disappointed, or like frustrated or whatever, there are some people around you who always can upbeat you, who always can support you, cheer you up, or something like that, even without your effort. It's very important to generate this environment around you. And the third one is cleanliness, mental and physical. If you're surrounded with a like mess, just clean your room first of all. As Jordan Peterson said one day, like if you want to change the country, you just clean your house first, or something like that. I don't remember exactly the quote, but he said something like that. If you want to change the whole country, just clean up your house and take care of your family first. That's already enough.
Good.
Yeah. And automatically mind become more clean because there is no distractions around you, as I said before. Like if you want to get rid of some habit, just first make it as clear and narrow down your attention to this habit exactly. And try to eliminate the number of distractions around you.
Yeah, because I remember times where I used to be super depressed and anxious and just like stressed that I didn't have the energy, right? Mm-hmm. That's typically the case where people are in those situations and the energy isn't there to be able to just want to do anything. It's easier to do TV, to smoke, and it just takes the least amount of effort. But the first step to changing that is, you're just saying, is to get up and move and just start to move your body before you even pick up your bottle, or before you pick up any sort of joint or smoke or a cigarette. Even you pick up the TV remote, right? It's just start to walk around the room, start to move your body, and just like in any ways possible, start to kick your legs up, stretch your arms. It's like you're preparing yourself for an activation mode. And this is something that I think is a really helpful thing to do, is to be able to activate your body. This is something that I do right away in the morning, is I activate my body and stretch and get as wide as possible, as narrow as possible, as flexible as possible, and stretch myself in these aspects to then be able to go out and start to be very powerful in all these actions that I do. But it starts with first just moving. And because the first step of getting out of bed sometimes is super challenging. It's like you're so comfortable. You don't even need to get out of bed at times. And just to worry about all the other things that's going to happen in the day and the stress that you have to overcome and maybe move into today. You know, that's going to be a stressful day. These are the things that can be changed by just the way that you think about them, first of all, I think, as well. But the way that you also just do. Sometimes the only thing that's left to do is to do.
Yeah, that's true. But I want to add something else. Some people, they stay in a very depressed state of mind, or they really lack of energy that they cannot even like move any single limb. So you can activate yourself through active movements or through passive movements. What does it mean? So you can make it even worse. For instance, if you're stuck on a TV or you're just doing nothing, staying in your flat like for the past few days, make it even worse. For instance, from my experience, I made a retreat for myself, just staying 3 days in a completely dark room with no light. I couldn't see anything. No books, no phone, no food, even no water. That's just my experience, guys. I don't recommend you to do the same thing, but you can stay with just water. That's already cool. So you make it even worse, and automatically, because like lack of information, lack of dopamine, immediately you understand and your body want to do something. You like become thirsty for actions, thirsty for like adventures or something. You just can experience it for 1 day. That's already enough. At least for 2 days now. The first day you're gonna sleep the whole day long.
So removing comfort.
Yeah. So you can just become as silent as you can. And the second practice that I recommend you to do is upavasa. From Sanskrit, it's translated as to being close to the gut. Upa means near, vasa means gut, like near the gut. So the practice is very simple. It's just as simple as it is. You just don't eat and don't drink. If you have some intestine or like stomach issues, don't do it. Just do it with the water. But if you're healthy enough, try to do it on an empty stomach without water. You will realize how aware you are of any action that you do with no effort. Just automatically it happens because all the energy that your body spends for digesting the food, your mind starts to generate and use just for observing your thoughts. It's very useful.
Wow. That's really good. And I love what you said about that is to make your situation worse.
Yeah.
Because what Tony Robbins, for those of you who know, Tony Robbins is a motivational psychologist, motivational speaker in America. And the thing he talks about is whenever there's not change happening, it's because there's not enough pain there. And so if you're not changing your situation, it's because you simply just don't have enough pain. So what if you were just you're so fed up on the situation that you're in, then you'll take action, right? You'll take action on that situation because you're just you have so much pain and you're annoyed, you're uncomfortable, right? You'll do something about it. But for those who are kind of like, they're just in that state of okay. I'm okay.
So you're not yet on the bottom,
right?
And you're like not good enough to feel okay,
right? Yeah. And so then there's that state where it's like I'm in the middle of like it's too hard for me to take action, and also it's too hard for me to do. It's like I don't want to be any worse. I'm just comfortable. I'm complacent. This is a very hard place to be at. If you're in a job and this is the scenario, if you're in your community and your friendship circle is like this, it could be in a variety of different scenarios that are like this. But what you talked about making it worse, it's a big thing. I mean, why would someone want to make something worse than if they're just okay? You know, what's the point of making it worse when they could try to make it better? It's like, okay, could it be any? Usually, what people ask themselves is like, okay, could this be any worse? And usually, that's the thing they'll focus on, right? And then it will get worse. But there's certain scenarios that go on, where you can also just kind of like take that step of just moving into an action. You can just move yourself into an action because you're starting to learn about different things. Like you're on this podcast, you're listening to this, you're getting inspired, you're having some intuition in some ways, and that can like kind of like lift you up two steps forward, one step back type of thing. There's like that kind of activity there. But why would someone want to take two steps back?
2 steps back.
That's the kind of thing. It's like I don't believe one step is enough. One step back is not enough.
It depends what state of mind you're in right now at the moment. For instance, if you're like in a progressive, in a stubborn state of mind and active active phase of your development, then one step back is enough. Because sometimes we just exhaust ourselves, we just burn out, and we need to okay, today I'm just chilling and doing nothing. But for those who are chilling for the most part of their lives and don't do any like active actions, and they feel okay. If you really feel okay, then just keep doing what you do. But if you feel like, nah, just something wrong going on, but I don't realize what exactly it is. So, and you don't dare jump up. So it's better to go down. Like, for instance, in relationship, people usually they're scared of breaking up, but at the same time, they realize that this level of communication is not enough. So they cannot trust each other enough. They cannot enjoy the relationship enough, and then they don't experience as much as emotions that they want. So it's better to make it even worse, to make a quarrel, to open up your emotions, to be angry, break a crockery, whatever you want. Just to release this kind of energy rather than bottle it up inside.
But I mean, I think that's helpful. But yes, also at the same time, it can make it worse in some ways because you're giving yourself that experience of feeling your emotions and the actual experience of the emotions, right? You're giving yourself that experience of the experience. And so there is some aspect to it that can be really challenging and actually uncomfortable because normally what I mean, in my experience, what I've done is just kind of like push it away because I've been in situations in my life, and especially when I was younger, I would neglect the entire way that I was feeling and thinking, and even just that self-care and that self-love for myself, that I was the person that was always giving to people. I was letting people use me. I was always buying the weed. I was buying the pizzas, the food for everyone, inviting them all over to my house, letting them kind of throw whatever they want and just make it kind of a complete mess out of my basement and my room. And I just I didn't even care. I just wanted the attention. That was the place that I was in. I just wanted that attention and the acceptance to be able to just kind of be there. But for me to just realize what kind of state I was in, because I was trying to force myself. It took up a lot of energy to force myself into the situation of trying to be positive and trying to be enlightened and always just joyful, because that's what I feel people liked about me, is that I was a positive person and I was just happy all the time and I was just kind of goofy. And this is the things that I felt that was my characteristics, my kind of core of who I was, my personality. And I realized that this was just a false interpretation of what people thought of me. But this didn't become to my understanding until I really started to pay attention to my body, and then started to pay attention to the things that, being aggressive. I got to a point where I punched a hole through my wall.
Okay.
And I decided to kind of rage out like that. And it was, wow, interesting to do that. And I eventually I had to repair it, but it was there for at least a year, that hole in that wall. And so this hole was right next to my room. I was looking at this hole every single day. And I was like, wow, it's something that was just in my subconscious. You're aggressive. You also have that power. And so this was in the back of my mind. But to be able to actually express myself like that, that's the part that we're talking about, right? That's the part where it's important to recognize where in your life can you start to express yourself in the best way possible. Maybe you don't need to punch a hole in a wall, but
Maybe two.
maybe two holes. Yeah, sure. It's just, yeah, get aggressive, go on the beach and throw some coconuts and start to yell, right? Like
Rings a bell.
rings a bell for sure. That's the type of thing that's so much fun to do. Or just to go outside and just do some handstands, like just throw your body around sometimes. I feel
Yeah.
is a really good thing to do. And it's just like that, it kind of opens you up. But the thing that I think is so important, not just being that aware of the state right before and realizing, okay, I'm just gonna like kind of like express this emotion, but also coming back afterwards. And so this is something that I kind of want to maybe close on, is understanding how to come back to the self, how to after the body's been super stressed, what is the actual, I guess you could say, notion or practical wisdom that is there when we come back to ourself after stressful situations. It's like, because some people, they don't have these experiences, they don't have this idea, they don't actually come back to themselves, they're still in that position, their mind is still there, their body is still there. So this could be actually presence. So my question to you is, how can people be present without using meditation or yoga? Maybe they can use it, obviously that's a great practice to do, but especially when you're not in the cases of able to have a yoga mat on at your hands, or to just sit down in the middle of work and all of a sudden meditate, right? Or to do breath work. That's the biggest thing. It's like, how can you start to be present in these situations that are, and come back to yourself after these stressful experiences? When you just yell at someone, it's like reflecting right after those experiences.
Exactly. I'll describe you my situation, guys. I'm getting very pissed when somebody cuts me off on the road, and I think up to now, and sometimes it irritates me. At least, yeah. At most, I'm yell at them. So how do I work with that? The situations, with these type of situations. For instance, the first thing, you just take a clean piece of sheet and write down like what happened. Describe situation in a very detailed, like at this time, this things happened. And the second point is just describe your feelings, like how did you feel? Like I felt like anxious, irritated. I felt like humiliated, or like I felt very angry. Then how did your body react? It like the third step. Like for instance, I felt like the tension in my jaw. For instance, it usually happens when you feel anger. You just observe your body. Like I felt I made my fists. For instance, like the uh, pace of my breath changed. For instance, as well. What else may happen? Like wherever you felt, you just describe on the level of your body. That's why I'm saying that it's very important to observe your body and work with your body first, because like the first thing that you can change in your hands without going to psychologist, without like sitting in a quiet position, you just can't change the way you breathe. Basics thing. Like usually when we're anxious or when we're angry, uh, we breathe very frequently.
Out of the
Or
mouth.
we hold our breath. It's two ways. You can just observe it. That's the first thing. So situation, how did you feel on emotional level? What happened to your body? The first step is usually like I write down how do I want it to be. Like for instance, I want to be calm when somebody cuts me off. And the last one, what should I do on physical level to make it happen? That's the thing. Like for instance, I should balance my breath. Or just observe my feelings, or I should be with an empty stomach, which is also very helpful if you like training your emotions. So yeah, when you're empty stomach, you like collect and gather energy inside of you rather than just wasting it for digesting food. Yeah, that's very emotional. In this context, it's also important not to drink because you distract your mind a lot. So it's easy to be disordered. It's also to be disoriented and not being in charge of your emotions and your reactions as well. So when you're in charge, your stomach is empty, your mind is empty, so there is no poison in your body, and you're completely in present and focused. So to get back, you just can write this. How many lines I said? Like 5 or 6. Situation, feelings, physical reaction, how you want it to be, and what should you do like on physical level to make it happen. That's the thing. It helped me a lot with, especially with the managing, with the anger management, because that's my like, I think the main problem. Yeah, as well, you can work it with any kind of addictions the same way. Like masturbation, drinking, smoking, using drugs or whatever. The easiest way. Just sit and write down.
Man, this was a great conversation. I really, really appreciate the stream of consciousness that came out of us today, and the flow of conversation. It's so amazing to hear your wisdom and share it with the worlds, and
Mm.
the way that you've been able to tap into your body and understand how the body has been able to influence your mind.
Mm.
It's so amazing that you were able to find that key, and it's been able to transform your entire life. You're now a yoga teacher, and you're living as a yogi basically, and it's really inspiring for me to see. And I am hoping to find more practices and even maybe learn a practice from you that you create, because you're on that level to get to that place where you're going to be like you're like Shiva's disciple, and you're able to tap into Shiva himself, and be able to create a new form of body movement, body shocking, to come back to the self and be aware of the self.
Mm.
Kirill, I really, really appreciate this conversation, man. It
Thank you
was,
so much, brother. Likewise,
yeah,
likewise. Appreciate for having me here. Thank you so much for watching us, guys.
yeah,
Join Sam's club, which is School of You. Really helpful. I attended a few classes of him. Very interesting, full of new information, even for me. Even though I learned lots of books and read lots of articles, like within my life. This guy is really helpful, even if in his very young age. His head is full of wisdom. Yeah, and be healthy, be free, and be joyful.